All right, so World War II in the Pacific, we are looking at part three. We'll be looking at the end of the war with the U.S. and Japan. Where we're starting is the area where Japan is basically becoming desperate. In 1944, they're going to introduce what is known as the Divine Wind. To most Americans, we would refer to them as kamikaze. Kamikaze is the Japanese word. And so the translation in English is divine wind. It comes from an ancient Japanese story where a Chinese fleet was coming to invade Japan, and this storm comes across, sinks the entire Chinese fleet, and so there's no invasion of Japan. They called the wind the kamikaze. So in October of 44, the Japanese start using kamikaze pilots, going on that idea of the wind. They're going to send these pilots out to make suicide runs and attack American warships. This is a picture of some kamikaze pilots getting ready for their mission. More pilots getting ready for their mission. It was very ceremonial. This was considered an honorable way to die for their country, and so they had volunteers, and many of these men volunteered to do this because they were going to honor their country and their family by doing so. Another pilot getting ready. That's the rising sun of Nippon, as it's called. That's the Japanese symbol. There were over 2,500 missions flown by kamikazes starting in October of 44. And they're going to last until the spring of 45. Right? There's a picture of a battle. That's an American aircraft carrier, and you can see aircraft and the anti-aircraft fire that is taking place during the battle. There's a kamikaze plane. It's been hit, and of course you can see the flames, and the wing is falling off, and it's going to crash into the ocean. Out of those 2,500 missions, there were 475 hits. It's not very many when you start figuring out the percentage. And out of the 475 hits, they managed to sink 45 ships. There's a picture of one of our carriers getting hit. You can see the massive explosion. There's some fires on the deck of one of the warships, another aircraft carrier. You can see them fighting the fires from the kamikaze hit. Next, starting not long after the kamikaze, the Japanese put Project Fugu into effect. Project Fugu was a balloon attack on the United States. Yeah, you heard me right, balloons. Starting in November of 44, lasting until April of 45, the Japanese had designed this balloon to launch from Japan, float across the Pacific, and attack the United States. They launched 9,000 of these balloons, all right, and each balloon carried a small bomb on it. The balloons were properly and very well designed to carry these bombs. They would get up into the jet stream, float across the Pacific, and then fall on the United States. There's a picture or diagram of the balloon. You can see it's a long wires. The bomb is carried at the bottom, and then the balloon itself is fairly spherical, very round, not quite like our hot air balloons of the day. And there's some distances you can look at and stuff, but the bomb is at the bottom, and there are two incendiary bombs you can see written there. Right? There's also an anti-personnel bomb. They were released in Japan and designed to float across the Pacific. And then mostly what they thought would happen is that they would bomb the West Coast. And that these bombs came in, the American people would, of course, go into a panic. And they're hoping that the U.S. would negotiate a treaty to end the war. And they were hoping for a treaty that would be favorable to them. There's an actual picture of one of the bombs, balloon bombs. When it was all said and done, they found the balloons landing in Alaska. They found them as far south as Mexico, and they landed as far inland of the United States as Michigan. Right? So they were landing quite a vast area. This map here shows you the basic idea. You can see some in the islands coming out of Alaska, a lot in Alaska, a lot in the northwest United States. You can see some down on the border with Mexico, California, Oregon. Then you go inland, and you can see them all the way to Michigan, and some even in Texas. Right? You'll also notice one in Hawaii, one not far from Japan, and two that actually didn't work out quite right. The balloons got blown backwards by the wind, and they landed in Japan. Out of all these bomb attacks by balloons, only 6 people were killed. Most Americans didn't even know it was happening while it happened. The government didn't tell anyone. They didn't want to cause a panic, and they did transfer 2 squadrons of P-51 fighters to the northwest, and their job was to patrol from basically Northern California to Alaska, looking for these balloons to shoot them down while they came in. All 6 people were killed in one incident. It was actually a lady and 5 kids. They were at a picnic. They stumbled across the balloon. It had already landed. And of course, not knowing that this was taking place, they started messing with the balloon, detonated the bomb. It hadn't gone off when it landed, and they were all killed. There's the memorial. This is the area where they were killed. You can see the names listed there. A little bit closer for you. The older lady was Elsie Mitchell, age 26. And then you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boys there that are listed. I'm sorry, there is one girl, Joan Patsky, 13. But they're 14, 13, 13, 13, and the youngest was 11. They're the only people who died as a result of enemy action in World War II on the American continent. Right? Everything else was fought in the Pacific or Europe. Next video, we'll start with the Manhattan Project.